Johnson was one of the people that I really liked coming into the season.
That's funny because DJ was like so anti-Watson. Why were you all about him?
I really liked his situation. I loved him in college, but I really liked the situation he came into. I kind of said that I thought he could have a Dak Prescott-like rookie year, and fantasy-wise, he offers running upside, which is something I look for out of all my quarterbacks. It's a huge bonus and creates a much higher weekly floor. He also came into a Texans team that was very similarly built to the Clemson team in terms of DeAndre Hopkins, matched up pretty well with Mike Williams' skill set and being able to get playmakers the ball. Will Fuller has a very similar deep game to Deion Kane as receiver. Braxton Miller, I thought, would be a little bit better in matchup with Hunter Renfrow. So that was one of the guys I really liked. Jordan Howard was someone I was high on that people were down on. He's had a pretty good start to the year other than that one game where he was injured. Kareem Hunt was someone I was really high on.
And he's been like the top guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Cook was
Cook was.
And then he tore his ACL.
We were all on Cook, and then frickin' that injury happened, and I think about 2 or 3 of my teams just ate it from there.
And then Austin Seferian-Jenkins is another guy I was telling people to pick up late, that once he gets back from his suspension, he's going to be the leader of targets on a team and get all the red zone work. And he's really looked awesome the last few weeks. But, people only like to talk about the players they got right. I certainly got some guys wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Let's bleed into that right now. Let's get loaded. Welcome to the Loaded Box Podcast,
where we never finish first because we finish last.
Thank you once again for tuning in to the Loaded Box Podcast. I am Ben, that is DJ, and as you could tell from our talk beforehand, we have special guest Eliot Crist on. He's making his second Loaded Box Podcast appearance, and he's here to help us preview Week 7 in the NFL. We're going to get back to what we were talking about, but Eliot, what's going on? How you been?
I'm doing well, man. Just NBA's picking up, NFL's getting underway. You got playoff baseball. This is just a sports fan dream right now.
It's a good time.
Yeah, I heard it on the radio today. It was only I don't remember. It was just a really low number of times that all 4 sports have been being played at this time of the year on the same day. So the only bad part is right now I'm a Cubs fan, and they need a guest appearance from Mitchell Trubisky and Tariq Cohen to come in and get a touchdown to tie this puppy up.
Yeah, I think you might be done there. It was a good run. You guys won the World Series last year, but it might be time to root on Mitchell Trubisky.
It's nighttime.
It's night time. Well, let's keep going with what we were talking about there. We're talking about some guys we were right and wrong on. So we had a couple guys that we were right on. Who so far have you been wrong on in fantasy?
I really like Martavis Bryant coming into the year, and he's really flopped. I think that's part to do with his play and part to do with the fact that Ben Roethlisberger can't hit him when he's open.
And they hate each other.
Yeah. But, he is still top 5 in the league in deep targets, and we've seen Martavis be open down the field and Ben just miss him.
Right.
Which is pretty frustrating because you still see the talent. I was low on Todd Gurley. He got off to a fantastic start. I didn't see the passing game workload. I didn't think he'd be getting 7-8 targets. He's gotten a David Johnson workload.
Right.
Similar to Melvin Gordon, kind of.
Yeah.
As far as getting into the passing game.
Yeah, exactly. Gurley has cooled down a little bit now that he's playing slightly better teams. But those are a couple guys I was a little bit lower on. But I try to forget some of the guys I was too low on.
That's the strategy, man. Just you forget about it. It never happened. That's how you should do it.
Happen.
Yeah, I was wrong on Martavis Bryant, and then I went the combo of Martavis Bryant and Amari Cooper in so many leagues.
Which looks good right now.
Well, yeah, because we're recording this during the Thursday night game where Cooper has over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns already. So I'll take that. But my theory on that combo was Cooper's going to be that consistent guy that can average right around double digits. And Bryant, yeah, I'm going to eat it with about a couple of 3 or 4 point weeks. But he's going to have those weeks where he bounces for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns as well. So that was my strategy going in with that. And it's sort of, I don't know, backfired until this week, hopefully. DJ, who are a couple of your rights and wrongs?
It's funny because my best rights were for my favorite team, the Green Bay Packers. So far, Aaron Jones, I thought coming into the season, watching tape of him, comparing him to Jamal Williams, I thought he was the better running back of the two. The guy I was more excited about clearly is the better running back of those two of those. And then ranking Devontae and Jordy kind of next to each other at 8-9. Right now, they're currently at 4-5 when I was looking at NFL.com rankings. So that's cool to see, but that can change now that Aaron Rodgers doesn't exist in this world. And then I really, really missed on Isaiah Crowell, and I'm embarrassed about that. I hate him for it. I hate Hugh Jackson for it, so that one's a tough one to swallow.
You got fooled by Coach Talk.
I did.
You totally got fooled by Coach Talk. Hugh hyping up Crowell and saying that he misused him, was going to give him all these carries, and you took the bait.
Yeah.
Your Green Bay Packers hit goes nicely into our Twitter audience question that was voted on earlier today. So we'll just jump right into that real quick too. And it was a question for Eliot, and it was for the remainder. What's the remainder of the season outlook for Packers players in fantasy now that Rodgers is sidelined?
Well, I mean, everyone's got to take a slight bump down. Even if Hundley plays well, you're talking about missing out on the MVP of the league. Devontae Adams and Jordy Nelson consistently get in the end zone. I think over the last 16 games or 20 games, 40% of Nelson's fantasy points have come from touchdowns. Geronimo Allison is the only receiver this year to go over 100 yards in a game. So you have to think that people are going to take a step back. I mean, Adams and Nelson got 10 targets a game, or what? Nelson got 10, Adams got 9 last game. Mm-hmm. I still like Nelson and Adams going forward, but they're no longer in that wide receiver 1 tier. I think it could be a slight boost to Aaron Jones and Ty Montgomery because they're probably going to rely a little bit more heavily on the run game, but their offensive line is not necessarily built to do that.
Right.
A lot is going to depend on how well Hundley plays. Hundley is a guy in college that stayed on one read too long. He seems to improve that some in the NFL. He's a guy that's a really good athlete, can take off and run, and he might be a guy you can pick up off waivers or even stream in daily. But the weapons themselves all have to take a step back, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you have to see what he has for a couple of weeks, so I completely agree with that. You don't know what you're going to get out of him right away here, so it's going to be interesting as a Packers fan to see what happens. I'm not, I don't know,
You're
not excited.
You're not excited is what you
just
are.
kind of on the edge here. I'm on the edge and I'm depressed, really. Still in a hole here.
Yeah. Eliot, what's your opinion on ESPN's own Matthew Berry?
I mean, Matthew Berry, I think he's focusing on a lot of season-long stuff. I focus more on DFS, so he's not someone that I read a ton of.
Perfect.
But I respect him a lot in terms of what he's done.
Damn it.
for the industry, in terms of, he's made articles that people enjoy reading. He and ESPN have kind of done more and more fantasy content, which paves the way for more people to get opportunities. So I really appreciate some of the stuff he's done. And I know he ruffles feathers and stuff like that, but I really appreciate the things he's done for the industry as a whole.
Well, then on that note, we're going to ask that you plug your ears, and DJ can go into his Fuck Matt Berry segment.
My Fuck Matthew Berry segment here. It's a Fuck Matthew Berry love-hate tracker, where I talk about how much I hate his loves. Love-hate, only doing his loves. So I didn't do his last week's, got a little bit behind. We had a full show. So last week, week 5, he had, not last week, but the week before last week, so 2 weeks ago technically, because we're going into week 7. He had hit four of his loves, had 6 misses on those guys. So on a 10, he hit 4.
That's a season high, though. Give him that.
It is. So he did that. This week he had a little issue, but this week he only had 3 guys on there. So he only had Kirk Cousins, Marshawn Lynch, and Devin Funchess. So Cousins, he hit 27.8 points. He hit Marshawn Lynch 6.3 points. That was a miss. Devin Funchess 3.6 points. Miss. So we had 3 choices that he could just narrow down, and he only hit one of them.
I like his strategy there. That's a great strategy because lower the amount of people. You don't have to get as many right. And I like how Eliot took us serious there. He legit left us.
He left us for a second. So that makes him 21 for 60. 21 hits out of 60 total picks on the year in his love-hate. So I'm enjoying it.
Nice. Eliot, just to bring you up to speed, we are blocked by Matt Berry. I just wanted to read some tweets. I don't even think we were following him. That's the funny part, but it's whatever.
I didn't leave because you guys were talking bad about Matthew Berry. I left because you guys froze, and I was trying to figure out what's going on.
We're just giving you a hard time anyways. Lads, go ahead.
No, I know a lot of people aren't big fans of his. Again, his work doesn't really impact any of the stuff I do, but the fact that he puts fantasy more and more on the map is probably good for everyone. That is
a good thing because he kind of was that first guy. I won't hate him for that. I mean, he has done a ton for the industry. I mean, bringing it to the forefront the way it is. I mean, just look at the way that. I mean, there's shows dedicated to fantasy now. It used to just be like Jaws doing X's and O's, and it was Chris Berman doing Sunday Countdown. Now there's legit fantasy shows, and it's what people want. So yeah, he's a big reason behind that. We just like giving him a hard time on here, and we hope that his heart's better.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, let's jump into our Pick 6 segment. This week it's going to be a Pick 9 segment, so it's an interception return for a touchdown minus the extra point, and then you're going to kick a field goal on your ass.
Yeah.
And we need to improve because we combined for 1 and 5 last week, so we definitely need to get our shit together. So DJ, why don't you lead us off with one of yours?
You want me to start?
Kick it.
All right. So I've got 3 with a bonus pick, so we're definitely going more than 9. I'm going to go. First one I'm going to give to you guys, I like Cincy. I feel like we're going to have some conflicting reports here, but I like Cincy +5 at Pittsburgh. I don't like the way Roethlisberger has been playing in general. Again, I'm a straight eye test guy, not a numbers guy. This is how I roll. I think Cincinnati slowly improving, have one of the better defenses in the league. So I think Roethlisberger is going to continue to struggle this game, and I think in a division rivalry that Cincinnati keeps it close. I'm taking Cincinnati +5 at Pitt.
Nice. I looked at that game and I almost went with the under just because both defenses have been playing well.
Yeah.
And Steelers' offense has been shaky at best with scoring, but I just feel like maybe they're due to break out at some point here, so I just ended up not touching it. Eliot, was that one of yours at all?
No. I tend to try to stay away from Steelers, Bengals games in general. They're games that can kind of go either way. So that it's not something I looked into.
Yeah, kind of like that heated division rivalry. It's kind of tough to tell what's going to happen.
I like the Rams -3 in London over the Cardinals. We've seen the Cardinals really struggle going across the country and playing on the East Coast, and now they're going to play in London.
Yeah.
With that 1:00 start time, which is 7:30 with their body clock, and we've seen them really struggle to handle that. I think Peterson is going to perform pretty well the rest of the year, but I don't know if he's going to perform as well as he did that last game. The Rams' run defense is poor, but they have experience going over to London, and I think they can really take advantage of the Cardinals' weak offensive line with Aaron Donald and company. Mix in Patrick Peterson's questionable, and if he misses, then they really have no defense. So I like the Rams this week -3.
Yeah,
That was actually going to be one of my questions for you later, so I might as well ask now. Yeah. If you had both Jared Goff and Tyrod Taylor this week and just streaming a quarterback here in fantasy football, who would you play?
I would play Jared Goff.
Okay.
Nice.
It's not a hugely popular opinion this week, but I think he's got a higher floor and a higher ceiling than Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, I like Tyrod's matchup this week, but I also like Goff, especially if Peterson didn't play here. So I was debating between those two. I was interested.
I actually picked up Goff in a league that I had Rodgers in. So I picked up Goff And then in another league, I picked up Goff, and I'm starting him over Phillip Rivers. So I'm with you. I'm hoping that it works out. I'll go into my first against the spread pick here. I'm going with the over in the Jags-Colts game. Colts have had 5 of their 6 games go over this year, while the Jags have had 4 out of 6. The Jags offense is 8th in points per game, and the Colts defense has been pretty lousy. They're 31st in yards allowed per game. We know what Fournette is at this point. I think he's going to be a pretty good running back. He's setting the tone on the ground. And if there's ever a week for the Jags pass offense to step up, it's got to be now. The Colts are allowing nearly 300 passing yards per game. And I look back at the schedule, and every Colts game besides one has hit at least 46 points. I don't see that slowing down here, so I'm going to take over of 44.
Jacksonville, Indianapolis, over 44.
Yep.
Wasn't on my radar of games. That one's interesting because you don't know. I mean, I think Indianapolis is a little bit underrated defensively, and obviously Jacksonville has one of the better defenses in the league, if not the best defense in the league. So I don't know if I would side with you on that one. That one should be an interesting one. What
kind of helps too is Boye is questionable. I know that he's been limited at practice, so I'd like that a little bit more. But I expect
Brissett doesn't excite me or anything.
Well, and Turbin's now out as well, so for you Marlon Mack owners, it might be time to start riding the wave. What are your thoughts on that, Elliot? You like Marlon Mack moving forward here?
Yeah, the Jaguars are 4th in the league in terms of giving up explosive runs of 10 or more yards.
Speaking of explosive runs.
And Marlon Mack does that a lot.
Yeah, and I'm all in on Marlon Mack. I probably put a little bit more on him than I should have in one of our auction bids for free agents. But desperate times, man. Desperate times. You want to go into your second one, DJ?
Second one. All right. I want to go with the official record, so I took all dogs this week, which I almost never do. It's more of a college football thing, but I went all dogs this week. I'm taking the Giants +5 versus Seattle. They're getting them at home all the way across the country there. I don't know. Maybe I'm a Seattle hater. I don't like anything about their offensive line. I like the Giants secondary in general. I think this is going to be an extremely low-scoring game. I don't know if it's ever going to separate from 5. I think that would be another game that I would look at the under in. But I imagine this is going to be close. Evan Ingram should continue to have a big week against Seattle. I think he's going to be the most targeted guy on that in that offense now at this point. I can't imagine. I can see the Giants pulling off another sneaky win here at home.
Yeah, I think if anything, I agree with what you said right away about the under. I just don't see a lot of offense happening here. It is kind of funny how the Giants were touted preseason as this team with all these offensive playmakers. They added Marshall. Obviously, they had Beckham. They had Shepard, and then they used the high draft pick on Ingram. And now we're left to Ingram. and the offense it's being led by a rookie, and he's doing a good job. And it could go either way in a lot of people's minds, because it could be like, well, Ingram's going to steal all the targets now, or is it going to be that the defense focuses on him? So I'll turn to Elliot and ask him what he thinks about Elliott not only this week, but for the rest of the year as well.
About Evan Ingram.
Yeah, I was going to say, Elliott or Ingram?
I'm sorry. You're Elliott. He's Evan Ingram.
No worries. I think that what we saw with the Giants against the Broncos, it's more the Broncos not showing up than the Giants figuring things out. Historically, without Odell Beckham, this offense can't move the football. If Sterling Shepard is back, it helps some. I know he practiced again today. But missing Marshall, missing Beckham, I think is huge. I think that the Seahawks can dominate them defensively. I can't get the image of last time Seattle went across the country and played the Giants. The Giants didn't cross the 50-yard line to the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
and Eli had 5 turnovers. So I could easily see this game being like a 17-0 Seahawks kind of game.
Right.
If it goes over, it's probably because there's some defensive points, or the Giants just kind of give up late. I think another game I personally like is the Dolphins -3 at home against the Jets.
There you go.
The way the Jets lost that game is kind of pretty emotionally deflating. Yeah. And now to go on the road against the Dolphins team, I think that's kind of like your classic letdown spot. the Dolphins did have that big win against the Falcons. Jay Cutler is still not good at football, but we just had
spoiler alert.
He just had the Dolphins were just 6-point favorites at New York a couple weeks ago. So, which means that this line should have been 12 as of a few weeks ago. I don't know if the Jets-Dolphins line should have moved 9 points in 2 weeks based on anything that's happened. So I like the Dolphins in this game. I think that the Jets defense is vulnerable. I think that Jay Ajayi could have a big game. I think Jarvis Landry can dominate in the slot. And I think the Dolphins defense is better than what the Jets bring on offense, and they should win this game. I'd probably say something like 27-14.
Well, we have our first
scores. I like that.
Yeah, we have our first overlap of the Pick Six segment because this is the only time I'm going to bet on the Dolphins all season if they don't cover this one, because I typically don't bet on the Dolphins, so I really need to see something in order to make it happen. I said this on Twitter either last night or 2 nights ago, but I think Vegas has kind of caught up and really understands teams so far. This is a tough week, so I typically, even if I like the Dolphins in a game, I'll try to find something else. But I think I'm just going to bet on Miami as the home team in this division rivalry. Like you said, they already lost to the Jets. As long as this game stays under that 3.5, I really like Miami. I think they were a tad bit more creative with their play calling last week. The defense has been solid all year. Jets have struggled to run the ball. Dolphins are really good right now against the run, so if they can get to McCown, put a little pressure on him, get a lead early, ride Ajayi, I'm taking the Dolphins. And I'm going to give you my spoiler for my bold prediction alert. Landry goes for a touchdown for the 3rd straight game. That might not seem bold for most receivers, but it's in the Dolphins offense, which Eliot broke the news. Jay Cutler's still not good at football.
Yeah, and he only had 4 touchdowns last year, so three in a row would be a big improvement. So I'll allow that as a bold call.
Nice. I'm taking it. I want to break up the Pick Six segment before we all get into our third one with asking Eliot. Eliot, what is your least favorite part about DJ on Twitter? He always seems to kind of just butt into things and just have his real own thoughts. So I want to know, what's your least favorite part of DJ on Twitter?
Just let me have it.
I feel like DJ sometimes will not let me live. You know what I mean? Like, if I tweet something out, he's got to immediately throw out like 8 counterpoints.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're not even the most relevant to the point I'm even trying to make.
I've known DJ my entire life. Once he gets something in his head, he's sticking with it, and he has to make his point heard. You should try being with him in person. Shit's ridiculous.
It's all good fun. I have a good time with it. I'm not trying to attack or fight with anybody. Other people take it wrong. You seem to handle it pretty well, so
dude, until you tell me like I should go kill myself or something like that,
I will never, ever, ever talk like that. I hate people who like I'm just trying to get a point across, and I'll sit there and I'll try to make points, but I won't ever tell you you're a fucking idiot or something like that. Like, I'm not going to come across and attack somebody verbally. That's just ridiculous.
He'll just text me his thoughts. He won't really say it on Twitter.
That's why I had to think there for a second, because I definitely get, every once in a while I get some guy that just loses his mind for no reason.
Yeah, I don't. Those other people that are ridiculous.
Yeah, Twitter's a circus, man. It's fun. It's a circus, though.
That was a great question. I love it.
DJ, let's do your third.
All right, I have to go with Atlanta +3 at New England. I just can't imagine them losing this fucking game. Like, I don't want to imagine them losing this game. New England isn't that good. They should have lost to the Jets this last week, as Eliot mentioned earlier. I know Julio's injured. It looks like he's hurt. But I feel like I've been waiting for it. This has to be the game that Julio goes off. They have to focus on getting the ball. He's not getting targets in the red zone. I don't understand what's happening with that. I don't know why Matt Ryan hates Julio. I don't get it. Like, I don't know. He's a terrible person, but I feel like after that Super Bowl last year, they need to put a beating down on New England in this game. I'm surprised they're favored by 3, so that scares me a little bit because Vegas is smarter than I am. But I'm going to take the bait, and I've got to take Atlanta +3 here.
Yeah, I personally can't touch this because those teams have been like New England's still good. I don't.
Are they?
Yeah, I think they're still good, but
yeah,
but they're the way they're playing is questionable. Their lack of convincing win last week against the Jets, questionable. The Falcons blowing a 17-point lead to the Dolphins, real questionable. So I'm staying away from that. Elliot, do you have any thoughts on that one?
Oh yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of points scored.
That's a great point.
Is a really high total, but the Patriots defense has given up a lot of 300-yard passing for the sixth straight time. No team before this year had ever done it 5 straight times. And now that Ryan and Julio Jones come into town, they're terrible against deep passes.
Oh, yeah.
Quinn basically told Sark that throw the ball to Julio more, get him the ball in his hands, or you're going to get fired. So I really like the Julio call this week. If they don't get the ball to Julio, he should be fired. Like, he shouldn't be allowed back on the flight.
That doesn't make any sense.
When you have the most physically talented receiver in the NFL, and you're not throwing him. He has 1 red zone target this year.
That's disgusting. Like, that pisses me off. I'm not any Falcons fan at all.
Yeah, it should really be if there's one person on him, we throw to him. Like every single time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
I want to talk a little bit more of Julio in our DFS segment. So let's bounce over to Elliot's last ATS pick.
I like the Chargers in a pick'em at home against the Denver Broncos. The Chargers could have easily won the game in Denver. I think this team, even though they're 2-4, has looked better than their record. They could easily be a 4-2 team. I think they kind of got some matchups that they can take advantage of. I think Melvin Gordon could have a pretty solid week. The Broncos don't pass block particularly well, and they got Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa. Broncos are missing Emmanuel Sanders, and I can get Casey Hayward on Demaryius Thomas. I think the Chargers can win some important matchups here and win this game.
I am cheering for exactly what you said. I just can't take it as one of those kind of stingy divisional games. The AFC West, I mean, the Chiefs are good. Despite losing to the Steelers, I think probably they're kind of the favorite right now. But that division is just a mess in my eyes. I can't predict it. Every single week I think I have it figured out. The NFL just proves me wrong. So I have to punt on that game just for the sake of fool me once. 3J?
I mean, it seems like the Chiefs are the best team in the NFL, though. I mean, at this point right now, I don't know. Between them and, I guess, I hate saying this, and I don't even want to say it. I don't want to come out at all. But between them and the Eagles, that tasted bad coming out. But I feel like hands down right now, they're the best team in the AFC West and probably the NFL at this point.
Oh, interesting. Good take.
Yeah.
I'll go to my last one here. I've got the Minnesota Vikings -6 against the Ravens. So the Ravens in their last 4, they were blown out against the Jaguars. They had a 15-point loss to the Steelers. They beat the Raiders without Derek Carr, and we know how shitty they are without Carr. And then they had an overtime loss to the Bears where 14 of their 24 points came on special teams touchdowns. We got the Vikings, 3rd in rushing yards per game allowed, and the majority of Baltimore's success comes on the ground because the Ravens are only 31st in passing yards per game. Whereas Vikings are, even though they've lost Cook, they've still been able to get production out of their running backs, and the Ravens allow the 7th most rushing yards per game. And I don't really want to compare these two players because obviously I'd rather have Dalvin Cook still there. But McKinnon, since the Cook injury, the first game, 146 total yards and a touchdown versus the Bears, and then last week against the Packers, he had 99 total yards and 2 touchdowns. So, yeah, you definitely want Dalvin Cook, but McKinnon, despite some fumble issues, has played pretty well. I don't like the Ravens' offense whatsoever. Mike Wallace didn't practice again today. I believe Macklin did, but I mean, if you're already taking a limited offense, one of their deep threat weapons away, I like him even less. So it's a decent sized number for a team like the Vikings, but I'm going to take it.
You always confuse me with. I guess I don't think I ever agree with your picks 100% here because I don't know if I totally 100% will ever trust Case Keenum, especially against a good Baltimore. I mean, he's going to come back down. What do we say about Sam Bradford? Like, where he's going to come back down to what he is. So is Case Keenum. He had a couple of good games, but eventually he's going to show who he is. Oh, that's just a game I'm not touching. They could, but still not going to touch that game at all.
Sam Bradford's sleeves is what brings him back down. I'm not worried about Case Keenum right now. He's not falling back behind the line of scrimmage like Sam Bradford was there against
Still
the
gets
Bears.
heated.
So keep it there. Let's jump into some daily fantasy picks. I want to ask another random question in between here. If you haven't noticed, Elliot, we like to go with some fantasy talk, some NFL talk, and then we'll like to throw in some just random goodness along the way. Before we started this podcast, on the bottom line, John Jerry of the Giants was on the injury report with his tooth. So if there was a fantasy player's injury report and you were on it, why would you currently be on the injury report?
It's got to be hungover.
That's a good one. I like that.
Could you imagine that? Eliot Crist hungover, questionable for week 7.
That happened to Johnny Manziel, right? He showed up to practice so hungover they put him in concussion protocol.
That's great. That was so much better than any answer I was preparing for.
I don't know. I had a good one for that one.
What's yours?
It's itchy asshole. I can't get over this itchy asshole.
Oh.
Ever since I turned 30 years old, man. The itchy asshole.
We've got the top 2. I can't beat any of those, so I'm just gonna stay put. I'm good. Jeez.
Yeah.
Let's go into some quarterback talk. Though the debate that's been on my mind at quarterback this week is Carson Wentz versus Kirk Cousins. Wentz is at 7,800 on FanDuel, Cousins 7,500. Washington, so Wentz is going against the Redskins' 19th ranked pass defense, where Cousins is going against the 30th pass defense. So I want our DFS insider here, Elliot, to give me the scoop. Who do you like this week between Wentz and Cousins?
I think the answer is both. And I know that's not what you want to hear, but I don't think you can go wrong either way.
It's fine. I actually did 2 lineups and I used them both, so I'm with you.
Yeah. A lot of the slates I play don't include the Monday night game unless I do the primetime slates.
Yep.
So I haven't really thought that much about the decision, but I do know that the Eagles' secondary is horrendous. Jalen Mills is like the worst corner in the NFL. Anyone who they line up against him just has monster games. Cousins has really shown to be incredibly effective. And Carson Wentz on the other side he's not going to be facing Josh Norman. Alshon Jeffrey should be able to eat whoever he plays. Zach Ertz has absolutely killed the Redskins in his career. I think he averages like 19 points a game against the Redskins in PPR. And Wentz also offers that running upside that we really look for. I think both quarterbacks, if they were on the main slate, would have a real case for being quarterback 1 and quarterback 2, respectively.
Right.
You know, it's nice to see Zach Ertz after 17 years of hyping him up have a good year finally, huh?
Yeah, the thing about Zach Ertz is every year he would do nothing the first half. People would give up on him, and then the last 5 games of the year he would go off.
Yep.
Nobody cared about him at that point.
That's such a good point. I was looking at it because I was stuck on these two, and Wentz has been good the last couple of weeks, 28 and 21, and then week 1 against the Redskins, he had a 20-point game. And Cousins, he kind of got off to a rocky start. He only had 12 points week 1 against the Eagles, but I don't think you can really take too much into account when it comes to a week 1 game. Teams are already pretty different. But his last 3, he's been pretty fire. He's been 27, 20, and 29. And like you said, Eagles' pass defense is pretty questionable. So I was stuck between the two, and I love your answer because I legit did 2 lineups so far, and I went with each guy.
All right, I got a question. At $8,800, second highest quarterback, is Aaron Rodgers worth the risk this week?
I will say that if you play Aaron Rodgers, he will have no ownership. So if somehow he goes off, you're going to have a huge advantage over the field.
That's
All
great.
right.
I can't suggest it.
All right. Okay. But actually, at $6,600 in attorney format, playing against the Saints, which should be still a decent high score, is Huntley worth the risk this week in tourney play?
I actually think he's going to be more popular than people think.
You think so?
There's been a lot of talk about him. He's got that running upside that people look for. And, it's really well known that Rodgers went out. People still like his weapons, and the Saints' defense a defense that people really like to target. I think their defense is much improved this year, and people haven't realized it yet.
Still middle of the road, but yeah.
No, I'm not saying it's an elite defense. I'm just saying it's not the defense anymore where you're just like, all right, doesn't matter who it is, fire him up.
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So I would look elsewhere. I would rather play guys like Goff. I think C.J. Beathard is actually a better play than Brett Hundley this week.
I saw your tweet
I saw it
earlier
too.
when you were going to stack the tight end and the quarterback from the 49ers, and I was going to tweet back at you, but I figured I'd save it for the podcast. And I can't get over. I can't play a guy whose name is Beathard. I don't think I could put my real hard-earned money on a quarterback from Iowa that got thrown into the fire. So, what's the theory on Beathard here?
Well, first thing is, whenever you say I can't throw my hard-earned money on a guy, that's the kind of guy that no one else wants to throw their hard-earned money on. So if you do play him, you can kind of really shoot up leaderboards if he does go off.
By hard-earned money, I mean drug money, though, so it's not that much.
Well, then if it's drug money, then CJ Beathard all in. Just make sure you do the drugs first.
It's Beathard, but yeah.
The number of jokes about him.
Oh my gosh, it's too easy.
Yeah. But basically it comes down to he's playing for Kyle Shanahan. He's going to have a lot of plays that are pretty easy reads and kind of easy execution plays against a Cowboys secondary that's pretty terrible. The 49ers offense averages about 72 plays a game, which is first in the NFL. So he's going to have a lot of plays against a bad defense and a game script where the Cowboys should be winning this game, and he's going to play catch-up, which means leads to more throws. With Kittle, he's gotten 8 targets in back-to-back weeks. He caught 30% of CJ Beathard's. I can't say that each time, but I'll do it once for you.
I appreciate it.
Touchdowns in college. So they have that college quarterback connection. We've seen in the NFL, oftentimes a backup quarterback comes in and he's got a real repertoire with like the third or fourth receiver because that's who he's throwing the most to.
Right.
Beathard has Kittle for 3 years. Like that's a huge thing for a young quarterback. And we always talk about a tight end as a safety blanket. And it really comes down to matchups. I think so often we get caught up on the name of the player, but the Cowboys defense is like really bad. Yeah. They're really bad, and the Lawrence is a good rusher, but the 49ers have 2 of the best tackles in the NFL, and Brown and Staley. Like I just think that the matchup is there, the price is there, and the other thing is he's got some running upside. I mean. He's a decent athlete. He can get out if he can break a couple runs. He's almost made value there. Like the thing is, I'm not saying that he's going to go for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, but at his price point, if he goes for 250 and 2 touchdowns, he's paid off. And if they both go to Kittle or one goes to Kittle, your low-owned stack that. Is super cheap that allows you to play all the studs like, say, Julio Jones, A.J. Green, and Antonio Brown. You could probably play all the top 3 receivers if you play Beathard and
probably 100%,
yeah. And
so it's one of those plays that you use the matchup to your advantage, you use the game script to your advantage, you use the pace to your advantage, and most importantly, you use the salary to have guys you like a lot more. Like, for example, I think that a CJ Beathard, Julio Jones combination is going to be better than a Dak Prescott pick your 6K wide receiver.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying, and I agree. Like when you say those 2 guys' names for the 49ers, I'm guilty of just like, oh gosh, it's the 49ers, it's rookies. I don't know if I can do it, but your reasons were spot on, and I can't argue that. So I'm gonna invest another however many dollars. I'm gonna do a lineup, and now I only have you to blame if it goes bad.
Does that mean I get credit if it goes well? Because my experience is that if I tweet stuff out and people like it,
I know
they then take it as their opinion and say they did all this great stuff. And then if it went wrong, it's all my fault. So.
We're on record here. So
we can negotiate a commission too. So no worries. Let's. I had another quarterback question, but we got a lot of stuff to get to yet. So let's jump into some running backs here. Is this a good week not to splurge on Le'Veon Bell versus Cincinnati? Bengals had the 14th best run defense in terms of fantasy. The over-under is only 40 at that. But, I mean, Bell's double digits 5 out of 6 games. He's had a 19, a 32, and a 26-point game in there as well. But 9,700 is pretty spendy. Is it a Are you splurging, or are you going to take a pass on him?
Yeah, I'm probably going to take a pass on him. Historically, he's had his best games on the road as well. That's where he has his highest touchdown upside. And for 1,000 less, I can get Ezekiel Elliott facing the bottom-ranked San Francisco defense. They've been better this year, but Armstead's out for them, which is a big deal. And they really struggled to cover pass-catching backs, and Zeke's actually getting that usage this year. And then a guy like LaShawn McCoy against the Bucs, who just got lit up by AP. And they've really struggled to contain pass-catching backs. And McCoy, with no Clay, is probably going to get 10 targets, which is huge in half PPR or PPR.
Right.
So even guys like Gurley and Fournette, if he's healthy, Melvin Gordon, Jay Ajayi, like they're just guys that I would much rather save my money on than pay up for Bill.
All right, I agree.
So I just listed off a few running backs here that I was interested in, kind of at the same price range. Kind of interested me more. I got Ty Montgomery versus New Orleans, Doug Martin versus Buffalo, and Tevin Coleman versus New England. All between 64 and 6,600. Who do you like the most there?
I love Tevin Coleman this week.
Mm-hmm.
The Patriots' defense is historically bad. Sanu, I don't know if he's going to play or not yet, but even if he does, he's probably going to be limited by that hamstring. I really think this is the game where they start to get creative again, get Coleman out against linebackers, get Julio involved, and just get their explosive playmakers the ball more. Coleman's got an incredibly high ceiling. 16 FanDuel points is his top game so far this year, but we saw last year him have multiple gigantic games.
Right.
And I still think he's very much the same player. And the matchup's good, and he's going to be really low owned. So as a tournament play, Coleman is someone I'm a big fan of this week.
Yeah, definitely agree with that one as well. Are there any other running backs that you've got your eye on that you might be targeting besides the earlier guys that you had mentioned?
I like Hyde a lot. Again, I'm starting to load up on 49ers, but you just take advantage of the Dallas defense, and he gets pass game work, which is something I'm always looking for. Jordan Howard, as long as Mitch Trubisky is the quarterback, the Bears seem to just want to turn around and hand it directly to Jordan Howard.
Right.
Yeah, volume is king in fantasy, right? Like,
yeah.
The guy who gets 30 touches compared to the guy that gets 10. Sometimes the guy with 10 is going to outscore the guy with 30, but I'll take the guy with 30 100 times out of 100.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So then Joe Mixon and Derrick Henry. So those are the two guys I'm really high on this week. Joe Mixon is probably going to get 20 touches again. The Steelers' run defense hasn't been very good this year. He should still get pass game work. He is an explosive athlete. And he's probably going to be a little bit lower owned than he should because he hasn't had that breakout game yet. And Derrick Henry against the Browns, it looks like DeMarco Murray might not go at 5,600 on FanDuel. He's 5,500 on DraftKings. If Murray doesn't go, he's going to probably be the highest on back, but he should be.
Right.
That's someone you probably don't want to ignore.
Yeah, we actually had a listener question. We usually save those for the end, but a guy asked us, literally those two guys, Joe Mixon versus Derrick Henry, got to use one. What's your pick if you had to use one?
So it's if Murray plays, I'm going Mixon. If Murray doesn't play, I'm going Henry.
Okay, I like that. I was going to go Henry regardless, just because I don't see as many points in that Bengals game. Henry, they've made comments about him just trying to get more carries here. He's their fourth down guy, or fourth quarter guy.
Fourth down guy, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen him in a couple fourth downs this year.
I love fourth down guys. Those are my favorite guys.
You got to rely on an offense that's going to go for it a lot if you're relying on a fourth down guy.
I love fourth down guys.
But, yeah, and even if Murray plays, I mean, that injury is going to limit him at some point. So my answer would be Henry. Do you have an answer on that one, DJ?
I'm just going to piggyback off of Eliot here. I don't have much to say on that one. Just gonna take his answer and repeat it for myself.
I like it. Eliot, DJ and I sort of, I guess for lack of a better phrase, we pride ourselves on our preparation and just our days on Sunday. We just love Sundays. It's almost like an art. Can you describe your Sunday to me, like your prep, everything that you do, your rituals, when you watch? Just what you got going on Sunday.
Yeah.
It's like I wake up and I shower and I watch the game, you asshole.
Yeah.
No, it's just not a question I've ever been asked before. So,
That's what we aim to do here.
So typically, before I even get to Sunday, typically Monday I take the day off from research for the most part. I'll research the Monday night game for a primetime slate. I just kind of want to clear my mind a little bit. And then Tuesday through Thursday, I start doing a lot of research, listening to podcasts.
Loaded box.
Yeah, loaded box. But basically trying to get as much information on the slate as I can through my own research, through rewatching games and listening to podcasts. And then Friday and Saturday, I do a lot of my builds, which is really helpful. Sunday, I typically wake up and then I kind of wait till 11:30 to get injury news and see how much it impacts what I built. At which point I start to really adjust things. I try not to tinker too much on Sundays.
I know that's
it's really hard. And then a lot of Sunday morning is me answering start-sit questions, which I'm learning that I might need to do a little bit less of, because as my following base grows, the number of questions starts to become absurd. Like I tweeted out because I woke up early last Sunday, like 8 o'clock in the morning, and I had nothing to do, and I was like, "Any start-sit questions?" And then it turned into 60 in the first 15 minutes, and then by 9:30, I had like 350 of them. And I was like, "Okay, this is too much." I try to answer people's questions. I try to talk to a couple people to see if they have any last minute change of heart, and then really basically react to injury news, because we talked about it a little bit earlier, but usage is everything. Right. So when people are out or when people are in, it can really impact a player's usage. So that's kind of how I focus my Sundays.
I like it. So is the HT part of your game day ritual?
Oh God, here we go with this shit.
What is the HT?
The halftime tug.
That has not made it quite into my ritual yet.
You're gonna want to find time for that.
Nobody has time for it. Red Zone exists. Fucking games are going on all the
Red
time.
Zone, I'll give you that. Red Zone has killed the HT a little bit.
Saturdays are the time for that for me.
Yeah, Saturdays are for the HT.
Saturdays are for the HT.
Nice. Well, let's bump into some wide receivers. This is where I wanted to talk about Julio Jones. In FanDuel or DraftKings, are you done using Julio until he starts scoring touchdowns? He has no touchdowns this year. His best output so far on FanDuel is 13 points. And he's always one of the highest receivers.
No, I'm not done using him. But your logic is the exact reason why I'm not done using him. Because as long as he frustrates people and he has that ceiling, it means his ownership drops. And it's not like he's playing poorly.
Right.
I mean, it's not him. So if it was him, I could be off it. But if I'm getting low-owned Julio Jones against the worst pass defense in the NFL, where the coach basically said, throwing the ball more, you're fired, like that's when you play him on every single thing you can play him on.
Yeah.
This is the thing that I preach every week is try to play guys that are low-owned. Like, I think it was, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I told everybody to play Travis Kelce, and he went off. Was it a Monday night game?
I think it might have been the Monday night, yeah.
Yeah, he went off. So that's one thing that I preach all the time, and I like hearing Eliot say it, so we don't have to fight about it on Twitter later. So it's a good time.
No, that's certainly really important. There are also other times where you need to learn that to eat the chalk.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, if Murray's out this week, you don't not play Henry just because he's going to have ownership. Sometimes, or Mark Ingram was really popular last week on DraftKings. No one played him on FanDuel for some reason, but certain times, like if a running back is looking at a starting role where he's going to get 20 to 25 touches in a good matchup, and he's cheap. He's kind of referred to as a free square, where you just kind of play him and you win elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean,
No, it's just because if you don't play him and he has any of a decent game, you're so far behind the field that it takes a lot to make up for it.
Right.
I mean, people are naturally emotional. Like, it's like, what have you done for me lately? So you guarantee just this week, Amari Cooper was a guy I liked if you're playing Thursday through Monday, like Ben said he was. There's a guy I loved coming in tonight because I don't think anybody's going to touch him because he's been awful.
And he has a great matchup, too. So, yeah,
like
had a
great matchup going into this one. I was talking to people about that today, so this isn't me just saying this because I'm watching the game right now, but I was talking about this all day today with guys. I love Amari Cooper this week. And now he's gone for over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. So it's something like it's a good player that's had a couple of bad weeks to not just jump off that. Like another guy I like throughout the season is like a Michael Thomas. I think he's going to be a guy people are low on who's going to bust out and have some huge games, especially going up against Green Bay Packers this week, who have the most banged up secondary in the damn league. So.
Yeah, I put Thomas in one of my leagues earlier today. Elliot, is there any other receivers you got your eye on?
Yeah, so Thomas was one person I was going to name. I need Jameis Winston for this play to happen, but Mike Evans.
Yeah.
He's kind of disappointed people some. He got saved by a touchdown against Justin Bethel, not Patrick Peterson.
Right.
Last week, but EJ Gaines, the corner for the Bills, called him out.
Uh-oh.
And that's not the bear I want to poke.
No.
I think AJ Green could have a really big week. He historically does really well on the road. Adam Thielen, as long as Diggs is out, I'm rostering as much Adam Thielen as I can roster.
All the catches.
Yeah. He's his targets are so consistent. So that's someone I really like. If we want to go cheaper, I like Robbie Anderson against the Dolphins. I like Robert Woods against the Cardinals. Basically, my rule of thumb is whoever Patrick Peterson isn't guarding is who I want to play against the Cardinals. So if he's out, then I love Sammy Watkins this week to kind of have a get-right spot. So those are a few of the cheaper guys I like.
What do you chalk Watkins up to recently? I mean, he's been really quiet since that, was it a Thursday or a Monday night game? I know it was prime time. I think it was Thursday against the 49ers where they went off. But he's had a couple of tough matchups where he's been going against really good cornerbacks, and he's either had like 0 or 1 catches in a couple of games here. So is that being new to the team, or what are you chalking that up to right now for Watkins?
So I think it's like a combination of a few different things. I think historically we see teams that have really good, or quarterbacks and receivers that have good chemistry really kind of take off. And that chemistry takes a while to build, and it takes more than a couple weeks of practice to just be good. That's why they have all these off-season programs.
Right.
So when you add that up to the fact that he's gotten Jalen Ramsey and Richard Sherman coverage the last couple weeks, I think that's what's really hurt him.
Yeah.
Because you see that the talent is still there. Like, it's not like he's washed up. He's a 24-year-old guy who's been a superstar in his career. I think right now he's matchup dependent. So he's a guy you sit against a tough corner, but you play against a weaker secondary as he and Goff develop chemistry in practice. One of these weeks he's going to really go off against a lesser corner with basically no ownership because people are completely awful.
Right. DJ and I we're big on Watkins. Obviously when he's healthy. I mean, I don't think it's too far off to say he's a top 7-8 receiver talent-wise in the league. I think, like you said, he's run into some walls at cornerback, and just the newness. I mean, Goff he's just a second-year guy. He's played basically a full season of games at this point. So I don't know. There's a lot of factors going in there, but I'm going to agree with you. Because when he does come back and he is having a favorable matchup, just because he hasn't scored many lately, I think you're going to get him at some bargain prices moving forward here. So it's kind of a guy I would keep my eye on, just like you said, based on those matchups. Who are some guys you have your eye on at tight end?
Boy, so if we're talking DraftKings this week, right? The main slate doesn't include the Sunday night or Monday night games, so we don't get Gronk, Ertz, or Reed, and Kelsey is out of,
yeah.
So we're starting to go bottom of the barrel. The top play is probably Delaney Walker because the rule of thumb is basically just whoever plays Cleveland, you just put his tight end in. That tight end in. I mean, we've seen guys like Ben Watson who's 800 years old.
Yes.
And
he invented
Jesse
the position.
Like it really doesn't matter. It's just kind of whoever. Tyler Croft went off against them. ASJ went off against them. The only guy who didn't is Jack Doyle. And I'm willing to bet that Delaney Walker is going to have a good week. Austin Safarian-Jenkins is another good play again this week. Jimmy Graham, I think he's gotten at least 6 targets in 3 straight games going up against the Giants, who have allowed I think 5 touchdowns to tight ends this year. So that's a guy that's going to get a ton of looks as well. And then Hunter Henry is someone I really like.
Yeah.
Obviously George Kittle, but I don't think I need to talk anymore about that. But Hunter Henry is the guy that the Charger staff caught up to the rest of America and realized, like, oh, shoot, he's pretty good at football. We should probably put him on the field.
Right.
And he went from playing 50% of snaps to now he's at like 85.
Yeah.
He went from no targets to 7 or 8 a game. I mean, anytime your rookie tight end scores 8 touchdowns, you should probably play him the next year.
Yeah,
and
you're
they're
on to
finally
something.
figuring it out. And the Broncos, historically, the way you beat them is with tight ends because they can lock down outside receivers and even slot receivers with Chris Harris. So you run the ball and you throw the ball with tight end. So he could get a lot of looks in a game where people just see Broncos and want to avoid it.
Yeah, I'm hoping that you're right on that Henry because I bought into him in I think 3 of my 5 standard redraft leagues, and I've just been waiting. I'm like, you know what, that talent is there. Those tight ends combined for 15 touchdowns last year, and even if Rivers is regressing maybe a little bit, it's not like he's fallen off by any means. So Gates' number of snaps is going down basically by the week. Henry's is going up. That's the guy I want as well. I like Henry and I like Walker. I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on Cameron Brate? In my keeper league, I took O.J. Howard thinking that, you know what, he'll start kind of slow. Eventually he's going to get worked in a little bit more as Brate gets phased out. But Brate's not getting phased out. He's had a touchdown in each of the last 4 games. And now he was the 4th most expensive tight end in FanDuel this week. So do you like Brate? He's 6,200 on FanDuel versus the Bills.
First off, I'm with you on the O.J. Howard logic because O.J. Howard is a better football player than Cameron Brate.
Yeah.
I kind of wish the Bucs and the Browns realized how good their rookie tight ends are.
I'm with you because I have them both in
Browns
that
suck,
keeper league.
I'm not arguing that the Browns suck, but Njoku, every time they throw the ball, something good happens. And they're like, okay, you had your good play. Now come over here and sit down. We don't need you to have any more of them.
Real frustrating.
Yeah, O.J. Howard's not getting the looks. He's playing a lot of snaps, but he's not really getting the looks.
No.
Brate's in play he's getting 8 targets a week. He's getting red zone targets.
That's money in the red zone.
That's what you look for. I mean, if your tight end can get 6+ targets and he gets red zone looks, that's what you're looking for because tight end's the kind of position that you don't need that much for value. You know what I mean? If your tight end gets a touchdown, he's probably paid off.
That's what we always say. If you get a touchdown with your tight end, you picked the right guy.
Yep.
So, DJ, do you have any more tight ends that you're talking about or you want to ask about?
My tight end question, so I've got nothing.
And you just hate tight ends in general, so you're out.
Yep. But tight end streamer.
Nice. Do you have any other daily fantasy guys before we move on to the final listener questions, Eliot?
I think I've kind of knocked out a lot of them.
And you know he'll be tweeting his. Is your thread come tomorrow, or what day is that you usually have that?
So the thread got moved to the Power Hour website.
Okay.
But I'll be tweeting out some nuggets and thoughts Friday and Saturday and Sunday. Just kind of instead of one thread, just kind of tweet out thoughts like the George Kittle one.
I read every time you have a thread.
I appreciate that.
Nice. And we kind of just jumped into the podcast, so right away, just to let our listeners know where to find your stuff, do you want to give out some Twitter information real quick and just kind of an overview of what you got going on?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Eliot Crist, ELIOT CRIST. You search Eliot with 2 L's or 2 T's, you will not find me. I see that a lot of people, Scott Barrett on his podcast said that people should follow me, and all kinds of people were tweeting at him that I don't exist. I assure you that I do exist. I'm doing a lot of work over at the Power Hour DFS, which is a premium NFL package where basically you get worksheets, you get podcasts, you get Slack chat, and you're in constant communication with some of the industry leaders for, I think it's $30 with the promo code Eliot W7 for the rest of the season, which is a pretty good value. So,
nice.
But I'm kind of everywhere.
Nice.
You should change your name to like Elliot the God, since your last name is basically Christ.
You should. But definitely check him out on Twitter. Elliot's one of my favorite guys on Twitter to follow. What you were saying there by doing like if you do like a double L or a double T like Zeke Elliott, how great would if that Eliot Crist was like a porn star and just random people were asking like fantasy questions. That would probably be my favorite thing that could have happened here. I thought that's where you were going with it. I apologize.
No worries. If I get enough followers, I'm sure there will be a fake Twitter account at some point just to troll.
I will make it.
It'll definitely be me.
We're doing it. Let's go into some of our fantasy football start-sit listener questions. If you want to get these in before each podcast, we're at Loaded Box. First one, we already grabbed into one here. Let's do another one. Would you grab Orleans Darkwa off waivers and drop Buck Allen or Duke Johnson as a flex position, or would you keep Allen and Johnson and leave Darkwa in the waivers?
I'd probably leave Darkwa for now. With Kaiser coming back, Duke Johnson's going to get that receiving workload again. I don't know if it's 100% accurate, but I did see someone say that Duke Johnson would be the PPR wide receiver 12 this year. So you're getting a lot of value testing
right.
football. And Buck Allen has shown in games the Ravens win, he gets a big workload, and he is still the receiving back. So I like Allen more than Darkwa. I think he had that big run against the Broncos, and it's very easy to get excited. But I would probably leave him on the waivers for those two.
Watch out, Elliot's got girls.
I did respond to this guy on Twitter just because he asked in advance. So I said, I'm going to leave Darkwa on the bench. I'm going to ask the other two guys. DJ, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I preach and preach and preach. Oh, I don't trust the Giants' offense, especially running backs in that offense, because they're switching them every week. It's like Bellatrix. So, yeah, I'd rather not have him on my team. Nor any Giants running back, because everybody was just on Wayne Gallman freaking 2 weeks ago. I'm like, don't do it.
Right.
You know, Orange Darkwa. Let's put him on my team. It's going to be back to Wayne Gallman next week.
Yeah. This is probably one of my favorite listener questions so far. The guy tweeted in saying he's an Eagles fan, and he wants to know, is it acceptable that someone bought his son a Cowboys jumper? Elliot, I'm going to let you lead off there.
First off, shout out to whoever did that. That's how you troll somebody.
Yeah.
This is how you troll somebody.
When my cousin had his daughter, he's a big Dolphins fan. I got her some Jet stuff, and then we went out and got her whatever toys made the most noise as possible. So it would bother him. So that's how you get people back. That's a subtle way to shit talk.
That is great. I like that. I never thought about that, like getting like the loud toys. And DJ's a fairly new father, so he probably does not appreciate that word of advice, whatever. What are your thoughts here?
And I get shit like that too. So it's like, no, I have that stupid popping goddamn little pushing thing that goes around the basement. I want to slow that. I literally have like chucked that thing against the wall. I'm like, you're done with this thing. And then I have people buy my kid. Like, we're over here in Wisconsin, but I'm a Nebraska fan. As far as college football goes, and we get Badger stuff for Braylon all the time, and it pisses me right off. So it's
right.
Yeah, I understand. It's annoying.
Yes, we got her, my cousin's daughter, one of those things where every time you press a button, it sings a song.
Yeah.
And if she presses it again, it starts the song over again. So it's just torture for her.
It is the worst. Every toy is like that, though. Like, they all start over when you push the goddamn button there. I know most people can't imagine me being a dad because I'm like a 12-year-old, but it's the fucking worst.
You are. My thoughts on this, as I've thought about it a little bit more, it's not acceptable. I just imagine myself having a kid, and if it gets any Packers stuff, like, I'm going to have a fire that night. Like, it's not going to happen. But I just realized, though, I'm a hypocrite because My sister is a Raiders fan, and
she
her
has
husband
943 kids.
Yeah, and her husband is a Falcons fan, and I once got one of their kids like a Jason Taylor jersey, like a kid's Jason Taylor jersey, thinking like, oh, this is cool, you know. But gosh, if I would have gotten like, not to be mean here, Elliot, but me being a Dolphins fan, if I'd have gotten a Jets jersey for a kid, that person's not my friend anymore. They're maybe not even family anymore.
So the way you troll them right back is, first off, my rule is if it's free, it's for me, and I'll take free. So if anyone ever wants to give me something, I'm always happy to take anything free.
Herpes.
But
Got him.
You usually pay for those though.
But like if someone got if I had a kid and someone got them like a Patriots jersey, I would use it to clean my kid up after a 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So this way you still get something out of what they gave you for free, and then you can send back like a picture of your kid taking a big steaming shit in the jersey, and you're like, "Thank you for this."
I'm so glad he swore. I was waiting for him to drop
Yeah.
a swear bomb on my podcast. Thank God.
I like it, Elliot. Your answers to our random questions have been spot on, minus the HT. We'll give you the pass on that one.
Yeah. Especially since I saw that girl walk in the room about a minute ago.
Wait,
my girlfriend just got home, so we're probably gonna skip the hand job talk with.
I totally missed someone coming in, so that makes it even.
You didn't see that?
Makes it even better. Let's close it out here with some bold predictions from Week 7. And since the game's already in the third quarter, don't be making it about Amari Cooper. I already said mine. Jarvis scores. DJ, what do you got?
All right, you did a homer pick, so you can do your homer call for me, but I say the Packers beat the Saints this week at home with Brett Hundley.
Wow, real bold. Real bold.
I don't know how bold that is.
By the way, Mitchell got his right last week. He said that Zeke wasn't going to end up serving any suspension. So far, so good on that bold
he's
call.
right. Do you know who Mitchell Renz is, Elliot, or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we had Mitchell on last week. We have a good time with Mitchell as well. So,
Well,
yeah.
The Zeke thing changes every 3 minutes.
It does.
Whichever side you called, you have called it correctly at some point.
What I imagined Zeke doing is like, I'm back, and he starts training, and then he finds out he's out, and he just goes straight to the bar and starts boozing. And then 12 minutes later, he finds out he's back, so he chugs down a bunch of water and tries to go back to the gym.
Who's the Grey Goose guy from Ohio State?
The what?
I have no idea.
Oh, the guy that played for Denver that said something about he was going to have some Grey Goose or some shit like that. The running back.
Oh, Maurice Claret.
Oh, Maurice Claret.
That's who it was.
Yeah.
That just popped in my head.
Got to get my goose on.
Yeah, I got to get his goose on. That's what it was.
Nice. Let's close this puppy out with Elliot's bold prediction for NFL Week 7.
I will go Julio Jones.
Here we go.
Gets at least 10 catches for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Bang. I like it, and so does my fantasy squad. So I am cheering for that. But thank you very much for joining us, Elliot. I want to say thanks again for coming on the first time. You were one of the first person that gave me some legit insight into Cordray Tankersley, and he has been the Dolphins' most consistent cornerback. So I am super happy that I got that insight from you, and I'm happy that the Dolphins selected him. So thank you.
It's what I do, man.
It's what I do.
I'm happy to come on. It's that call is looking like I got it right. I had Tank as a late first, early second round guy. I couldn't believe he fell, and I was so pissed when the Jets, who need 3 corners, didn't take any. And then Tankersley was just on the board each time, and then of course he goes to the Dolphins. And
right. So now you get to see him twice a year against you.
I'm sorry I was right. I'm sorry I was right on that one.
No, I'll take
see
it.
you on Twitter every time you try to breathe as well. So.
Nice. Well, thanks again for coming on. We'll have to do it again here soon.
God.
DJ just witnessed like someone's ankle breaking or something.
No, that was a wild touchdown.
Touchdown.
Yeah, just wait till you see that fucker. I'm just ruining that.
I'm about 10 seconds behind DJ on game feed, and I just saw.
Remember that Alabama Alborn touchdown? I think Alborn touchdown where it bounced off the guys.
Yep.
Yeah, I caught it.
Just happened.
Yep.
Spoiler alert: Chiefs scored third quarter. Nice. Well, thanks again to Elliot. Follow him on Twitter. Check everything he's got going on. Check us out on Twitter at Loaded Box. Get your questions in. Thanks again for listening, and have a nada.
Bye.